everyone, this is Chris. Thank you for joining me. So in today's video, we are going to use air dry clay. And if you don't have air dry clay, but you have polymer clay, you can totally go for that. I'm just using something very cheap for beginners as myself. So disclaimers, I am a beginner, but I think a lot of people are starting to begin with some kind of clay, polymer clay, you know, that the one you cook in the oven, whatever the name is, or air dry clay. If you're a beginner like me, I think starting with an air dry clay is good because it's very cheap. So if you make a mistake or if you think that your piece is not good, you don't have the feeling that you wasted a lot of money. So I'm using a very cheap air dry clay. So this is the one I just used. It's called Dough and Dry from Creole. Depending on where you are, you can find different of these clays. You've got also this one. It's really not expensive. This one was $1.35 actually. So something cheap and it will do the trick. And I'm really happy with the results. So I'm just going to show you. I'm going to go a little closer to show you what I have done so far. And of course, I waited for these pieces to dry completely before going and paint them. So some of these I painted them with acrylic paint. That's totally fine. And for some others, like this one and these, especially the two leaves, I painted them with alcohol ink. This one was painted with vitri paint. So these are the vitri. These are not alcohol-based paints. They are solvent paints. So if you want to clean up your brushes, you will need to use the same solvent that is inside. And what works for me is using acetone. So make sure that you use acetone because alcohol will not clean up your brushes with this, but it will, of course, with any kind of alcohol inks. So I love the Pinata because the colors are very vibrant, but you can also use your re-inkers like Ranger or any other type. So this one is really glossy. This one a little less, but it's still very glossy. So you can always put a varnish on top if you want to make it even more glossy. And this one was made with acrylic ink. So there's not a very big difference between all of them, except maybe for this one. I hope that you will grab it on the camera, or the camera will grab it, but you've got different colors here because I've used a little bit of yellow and then some dark green. So the leaf is not all the way the same color everywhere. And I also give them a little movement because I want to turn these into pendants and I didn't want to have something flat. So I just make sure that when they were drying, I was going to give them a little movement to them like this. And maybe I'm going to put something else in the middle. And I have to finish the tail, which I didn't have time to do yet. So I'm going to show you how you can make these without having special molds. For the cactus, I used molds that I found on AliExpress. It came out to be very cheap. I will put the link underneath, but if you just type, I think it was cactus mold, you will have a whole bunch of these and they're really not expensive. And there comes in a mold of 3 different types and they're really nice. And I'm going to turn these into pendants. So I've got some bales here and I think the smaller one is going to do perfectly. I've got another one here that is bigger, but I think it's too big for this and I don't want them to show on the back. Oops, I'm off camera, sorry. There you go. I'm even going to zoom in a little bit more. So yeah, I'm going to put, I think, gold paint on the back of it. And then I'm just going to glue it down here on my bale and use these as pendants. This one is really too big. I don't want to see it. So I'll do the same thing on this one and probably also on these. And you don't have only to put these into pendants, you can use them on cards because this clay, air dry clay, is very lightweight, so you can really use them on cards. It's going to be a little bit thick for sure, but it's going to be beautiful. If you want to give the card directly without mailing it, that's even a good idea. So I'm going to show you how you can make the leaf now just by using some stamps. So I've got a leaf stamp that is more like a tropical leaf. It's very trendy, so I'm going to use this one. I just bought a whole bunch of tropical leaves and oh gosh, I couldn't find them in Panama. You know, for those of you who follow me, that I moved back to France right now. I don't know for how long, but for right now I am. And I went to craft stores, and oh my goodness, that was a dreamland. It was like, oh yeah, it was wonderful. I could find almost everything I wanted. So I'm just going to press down. I've put my stamp on an acrylic block, and I'm just going to stamp it there. And I'm going to make sure to really press down here, because I want to have a very nice print on my clay. And I'm not giving you the thickness of the clay, because it's up to you if you want it thick, very thick, or thinner. That's totally fine. I wouldn't go too thin, just in case it breaks. I'm just taking it out very nicely, and as you can see, the print is absolutely gorgeous. So now, normally you have special tools, but I'm still unpacking and I haven't found all my tools. I have them somewhere normally, but as soon as I found them, I'll use these. But anyway, I'm just going to use an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to go in there and try to cut as close as I can from the border of my leaf. And yes, this is not the perfect tool for this, but this is just to show you how you can make it. If you've got tools that are much better, please do so. But I'm still having a great fun doing this. And when this clay dries, you can sand it down like any kind of polymer clay. If you don't like the ridges, and you can sand them down very nicely. Don't use something too how could I say, too big or too small. The bigger the number, I think the grit is finer. My tail is too thick, so I'm going to go back in here. I hope my fingers are not too much in the way. And I might do something like this. Yes, I think I like it. And there you go. And you can stretch it a little bit if you desire to stretch it. And I'm going to use this spatula, and I'm going to try to make my edges a little bit more nicer. Take your time when you do this. But honestly, I'm having a lot of fun, because you can do things with a lot of your stamps. I'm sure that a lot of you are a stamp maker and you want to try different things like I do. Well, do use what you have. Of course, you will need some molds for other projects, but hey, it's another way of using what you have. That's the beauty of things, that your stamps are not going to be only useful for stamping and card making, but you're going to be able to use them for so many other things. So I'm trying to flatten out the edges as much as I can, and I will come back with a sandpaper as soon as it's dry. And now what I'm going to do is stretch it just a tiny bit, and I'm not pressing down too much because I don't want to take away all of my design here. I'm just stretching it to make it a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to decide how I want it and how I want to bend it. So I don't want to bend it too much, just a little bit like this. And then what I will do, but I'll do it off camera, is that I will probably put something on the edge on both sides, maybe a pen here, to make sure that it's going to stay in place and it's not going to flatten down. Maybe not the tail, I want the tail to be flat, but just here. And I'm going to put it aside and make sure it's going to stay in place like this, and the result will be like this one, which is much flatter. And I also have these two that are different every time, and this is what I like about this, is that you won't have always exactly the same thing. And I like three-dimensional stuff. So once this is dry, and I'm going to put it aside, as I said, I have already everything prepared. You can start, and I do it when it's dry, but if you want to paint it when it's still not dry, I mean flexible, you can do it. But I prefer doing it on dry clay, because if I make a mistake, I can brush it away without damaging my image. When you're doing it right now, if it was completely, flexible and not dry yet, if you want to go inside and you want to press a little bit with your paintbrush, you might damage your design. This is why I'm doing it this way. And also I think I feel more comfortable because I'm a beginner, but that's the way I like to do it. I'm not sure there's any wrong or good or wrong way to do it. So now I'm going to use my Vitri color, because I found this green was really nice, and I'm going to color it. And what's nice about these colors is that they're very translucent. It's made for glass, but it's also working on metal, non-porous surfaces, and the colors are brilliant. And you don't need a lot when you paint with this, especially on these pieces, even though it's not a very small piece, but you're really not going to use much. And because it has this transparency, you can go over it if you want to darken it up a little bit, or you can use other colors on top, but you will kind of see the color underneath. So if you were, let's say, putting some red on this, the color would look like brownish underneath, okay? Because it's not opaque. And I could put a little bit more here. That's what I was saying. Just by putting more color, my leaf still has one color, but it looks different. I've got some darker areas, just using one color. With acrylic, you wouldn't have this kind of effect. Don't forget to paint the edges. And if you missed a spot, you can always come back, put a little bit more. I love these projects. And painting, I don't know what you think about it, but it's kind of relaxing. It really is relaxing. If you feel a bit stressed out, at the end of the day, I think it's really nice. When you come back for work, look at this. There's only one color, and it looks like there's different colors. A little bit like if there was a little bit of yellow and green here. And I'm going to leave it like this. And I'm going to wait until it's completely dry to see if I need a little bit more. Anyway, I'll have to come back and finish up the tail. But I think it's really nice, and it's kind of glossy, and it's going to stay like this. And if you want to have it a little bit more glossy, you can always come back and use any kind of varnish like Mod Podge or something like this. That would not be solvent based because it might take it away. So I'm going to put my brush aside. Okay, so now for the cactus, I'm going to use some paint. This is acrylic paint. It's called Basics. Any brand will do for this. I'm just going to use a darker color, and I'm using a stiff brush because I really want to go into all these crevices. And I might do some lighter and darker areas. Maybe put a little bit of yellow on top. Or maybe, I'm thinking maybe a little bit of gold. That would be nice too. I'm taking away all the excess, so it's going to go a little lighter. And this paint, this acrylic paint, is not glossy, so I will probably put a little bit of varnish on top because I like when it's glossy. But it's just my personal preference. And I kind of like it when I take it a little bit off like this. I don't know why I like it. Taking a little bit more. And my paintbrush is really dry. That's why I can't take it away. So then for the back, it's either you want to paint it the same color. That could be an option. And because I'm not putting too much, it's going to dry fairly quickly because acrylic ink paint does dry very quickly. Or I might come back and maybe paint it another color. Usually I like when it's just gold or maybe black. Why not? Because that's the back of it. But I like the way that it looks with a little bit of the paint off. That's nice too. Ooh, and again, my glove is going away. Gosh, this is not a very good brand. Or maybe they're a bit too old. Yes, let's see now with a little bit of gold. And I'm using, again, basics. I've got different brands here. I'm going to change this glove because it's driving me crazy. Okay, that's better. And now I am using a little tiny bit of gold. Again, I'm trying to brush the excess off and putting it on top here. A little bit. I like gold and green. That's probably not enough. I love painting small things like this. It's really nice. Look at that. It has a little shine to it, but we can still see the green. Might put a little bit of more green. And for the bottom, I'm using some glove because I'm going back and forth with these solvent paints. But you could also use, as I said before, your pinata. And I'm going to use some brown for the base. I could have kept using the gold. Oh, this one is quite dark. That's fine. And I've already shaken them up because usually it's better when you shake your paints, alcohol paints. I don't know if you really have to, but I like to do it to make sure that all the different ingredients in there just really, you know, mixed all together. I'm sorry, again, I was off camera. There you go. Yeah, I think that I kind of like this darkened color. So it's making a transition. And for the inside here, I might use something different. Or I could keep it white, actually. I don't know, what do you think? I could keep it white. Maybe I'm going to keep it white because I think I like it. Or a lighter color. And what I'm going to use for these, yeah, maybe a lighter color, a lighter brown. So I'm going to use these alcohol markers. And actually, I found these not long ago in my local craft store. And I paid €3.25 for this whole set. So there was, I think, 5 sets of these different sets. And I took all the colors away. And I've tried some of them, and they're not too bad, actually. You can't find any refills for these, but hey, for $3.25, I don't think it's going to be an issue. And I'm going to use this brownish, light brown color. And look at that, it's got a big chisel brush on one side and a bullet on the other. I think it's called bullet. Well, use a thinner one. And I'm just going to color the inside here. And because it's alcohol based, I know it's going to stay on there very well because now it's not that porous. It is a little bit, I guess, but it's going to stay there very well. And if I want to put my varnish on, because my varnish is water based, it's not going to take any of this paint away. Even though with the acrylic it's not going to go away, but I would not use probably some watercolor paints for this. And there it is. Yeah, I think it needed something else, not just plain white. And this really is nice. So again, I could use this as a pendant or just put it on a card. Why not? Maybe it's a bit big for a ring, but I think I like it as a ring. No, this one is a bit too big. So you see, you can use different materials, different paints or markers. You can use also alcohol-based ones. It's so fun to do. I mean, whatever you have, I'm sure you can use it. This one could be nice as a pendant. I think it would look just great as well. It's a good size for a pendant. And well, that's it. And I wanted to use to show you this other one too, this clay, because I think it's quite interesting and it's very different. It's the first time that I see it, and I wanted to give it a try. And this clay, you might find this one. It's called Home Deco modeling clay. And what I was interested by, it only cost me €1.39. I mean, for 500 grams. And what I liked about it is that it said that it was a stone look to it, and it was air dry. And it's also 98% natural ingredients, which also was quite something good. So I really wanted to give it a try. And what happened is that the inside is gray. And I didn't understand that when it said stone look. I thought it would have been white, but this is what it looks like. So I did a flower, the exact flower that I have here, and I did it in this with this clay. So it's just like a normal clay. You use it exactly the same way, and I did this kind of stone look just to give it a try. So that's the back of it, just to show you without putting any kind of varnish on top, so it's matte, obviously, and it really looks nice as well with some varnish, and it's very lightweight. So this could be interesting if you want to make some kind of organic decor. You could use this clay to make little stones the size you want. It's not always easy to find exactly the size of the stones we want to put, maybe even on a card or something very three-dimensional. So that's a very nice clay to use as well, and it dries in more or less 24 hours, maybe a little bit more. But when you make these clay dry, don't forget to maybe after 6 hours to trim them to make sure that the other side also is going to dry perfectly, because if you keep them like this always on the same side, underneath it tends to kind of keep its moisture and it's not drying that much. So turn it around, or maybe after 12 hours to make sure that the other side, especially if it's thick, the inside as well is going to be completely dry and solid. But it is, and it's not going anywhere. I can't bend this piece, but it's quite thick. The flower as well, it's a little bit bendable, but not that much, but I don't think it would break. And also I wanted to show you this one, because this one I made it again with a stamp, and because it's very intricate, I've got a little bird and a flower, I thought that using the pens here, the markers, would be absolutely beautiful, because it's not going to be easy to go in there with a paintbrush unless you have a very thin one. So I'm starting with a lighter color, because I might come back, and it seems to be a little porous because I can see kind of and this color is beautiful. I'm really happy about these markers for the price I paid, honestly. Gosh. And I will do the head a little darker later on. But look at that. The idea here is just to use your markers when you have very, very detailed area, to go in there without being scared. And because it's alcohol based, if you made a mistake, you can always come back, and I would use probably a Q-tip or something very, very thin to go in there and take away what you have done. This is why, you see, I went a little too far, and apparently it is still kind of, even though it's completely dry, it's like not completely non-porous. It is a porous surface. So my bird is not perfect, so I would do it maybe, I would take my time next time I do this. I'm gonna keep up doing it anyway and color up my leaves here. If you want to go and fast forward, that's totally fine. But I want to show you how you can color these fairly quickly. Yeah, I shouldn't go on the side, and just stay in the middle.